Hello everyone, my name is Victor and I work for the Canadian Spa Company. I do all the acrylic repairs. Today we're going to go over blister repairs and the process. The first step when you have a tub and blisters appear, you need to do a thorough inspection of the whole hot tub, especially the footwell. So everywhere where water flows, you need to make ensure that there are no other blisters. What's very important when you're doing any type of repair on acrylic, which is like a hard plastic, you need to wear safety glasses and also a mask. You don't want to breathe in any of the particles or get anything in your eye. So safety first, no matter what. The proper tools required to do blister repairs is there's a Dremel, and then you have different size Dremels. And the one we're going to use to cut out the blister is a round edge, for example. And what we do is, if this is a blister, you cut around it, and then you remove the top, like the cap of the blister. If you haven't used a Dremel before, you can use a fine point black magic marker to do the outline. A lot of Dremels have variable speeds. You don't need to go full speed. Full speed would be harder control. So you try and go on the pretty close to a quarter of the speed on the low end. Usually, before you cut the blister out, I always put a center hole, just in case there's air trapped or water. Underneath the acrylic is fiberglass. So when you cut the blister out, you only go the depth just when you touch the fiberglass. You don't want to go deeper into the fiberglass. So there's the fiberglass. Notice I've did very little grinding into the fiberglass. When you take the blister out, the next step is going to be you have to bevel the edge. And you bevel around where you cut out. I will cut out all the blisters. What's very important with any type of repairs you do, prep. You always have to really do a good preparation. It could be on hot tubs, whatever you do. No different if you're painting a wall at home. Prep the wall properly. Sand, clean. You'll end up doing a really high quality job. This particular hot tub had quite a few blisters, which is generally uncommon. So after removing the blisters, as you can see, the next step of the process is you can bevel it, or ideally you have to sand the top portion. You cannot have anything protruding. The filler has to fill into where the cutouts are. So all these where blisters are. The key to adding the filler is this area has to be roughed up. The next step is I'm going to sand this, like with a medium grade sandpaper. All this area has to be sanded. And of course, you always have to be careful of the jets. If you're not comfortable, you can tape these up. I don't like to tape them right away because I want to make sure I get every area of where I removed the blisters. This is a vibrating sander, so it actually vibrates like this. Okay, so you sit, and to do these type of repairs, my recommendation is to get this type of sander. It could be battery operated or you plug it into the wall, and they're not that expensive. The ones that you plug into the wall are less money than one that's on a battery. And the sandpaper, if you look closely, you see it's like a medium grade. It doesn't have to be rough, but it's going to take the shine off the acrylic, and anything that's protruding, it's going to remove. To rough sand the surface and anything that's protruding, important is safety glasses and a mask, because you don't want any particles hitting your eye, and you definitely don't want to breathe in acrylic particles. I'm now going to rough sand it. Just to show you why we wear a mask, there's the sanding. You don't want to breathe in these particles, and you don't want anything ricocheting off your eyes. Next step of the process is I'm using a shop vac to suck all the particles, and then after all this is nice and clean, I'm going to check for roughness, and then I'm going to clean the area with alcohol. The surface has been sanded, nothing protruding, vacuum, and now what's very important is to clean the area, the whole area where I sanded and beyond a little bit, with alcohol. This takes any dirt, particle, grease, and you don't have to skimp on the alcohol. What's very important now is wherever I remove the blister, I have to add Loctite 406. And the main reason for Loctite 406, the acrylic may separate from the fiberglass. So in order to have a really good, strong bond and also seals it, you add the Loctite 406. Prevents any moisture from getting in. I can tell right now that the acrylic has sort of separated from the fiberglass. It needs to be bonded as one. And everywhere around the edge where it meets, I add Loctite. And don't worry if you add extra, because what we're going to do once it dries, we're going to sand the excess off. Loctite 406, theoretically it should cure instantly. I give it a couple of minutes to make sure, and then when I know it's well cured, I also do the test, the push test, to see that the acrylic and the fiberglass is not doing this, not separating. If there's no movement, I know it's bonded. So after Loctite 406, I've given it more time than it needs to dry. I need to do a quick sanding to remove the excess Loctite 406. So same process, sand, vacuum, alcohol. Preference, if you need to use the shop vac, go ahead. If not, very little of the Loctite 406 have to be removed, but you can use a cloth just to wipe off the excess. Clean again with alcohol, because it's very important the area is nice and clean. So a quick wipe is very important. Next step of the process is to tape the surrounding area. I will tape this circle where the blister I moved, and then I'm going to add some tape all around here. And the purpose of the tape is when you add the filler, you don't want to get excess filler all over the rest of the tub because it's going to be a lot more work to remove. There's the taping. So the process now is to put the first layer, and you put a thin coat to fill in the cavities, okay? And you could end up putting 1, 2, even 3 coats. The last coat that I would put on is called a skim coat, and that's for cosmetically and sealing. But if your hot tub doesn't have that many blisters, you don't have to do a skim coat. This is the filler. Notice the filler comes close to matching the tub. Now it may look a little darker, but when it cures and you sand it, it'll come out more of this color. This is the hardener, and the key to this is you need to add maybe like a teardrop of a hardener, but you have to mix it like a figure 8, and you got to do it real quick because it starts to cure within 10-15 seconds. All of a sudden you're putting it on and it starts to become like lumpy. You have to stop. It's no good. It's supposed to be able to spread like smooth peanut butter. This is like for drywall. You get this at any hardware store. So it's your applicator. So when you want to put your filler, you cut your applicator into the size you need. Canadian Spa Company supplies the hardener, and this is the filler. And the key is use accordingly a little amount so you don't waste. So I'm going to take, for example, it's approximate size. It's like a scoop of peanut butter. I put it on like a wood dish or tape so it's easy to peel off. If you put too much hardener, it cures quickly. All you really need is, I call it a teardrop. So you can see this. The key now is you have to mix it thoroughly, figure 8, and mix all sides. Very, very important that you mix this like 100%. You have to do it real quick, like, if you want, count 10 seconds. And right now you can see it's like smooth as peanut butter. And now when you apply it, you apply a thin coat. So if you see here, I do, that's 1 coat, okay? Doesn't have to be perfect. And as long as it feels like smooth peanut butter, you keep going. But the moment it feels like it's getting lumpy, you stop. And you can see the reason for the green tape. It's painter's tape, so I don't make a mess everywhere. You put thin coats so it cures properly. A proper cure, it could be about 10, 15, 20 minutes. To check if it's thoroughly cured, this material has to turn into concrete, hard as a rock. Right now it's like a hard rubber. So I'm going to remove the tape, and then I use a blade, a sharp blade, to take off the excess, so it's less sanding. But just be aware of safety, of course, handling blades. When it's almost cured, I can bend it, see? Right? But you see how it breaks off. So it's almost like a hard plastic. But when it's thoroughly cured, you wouldn't be able to do that. Right now I'm going to remove the green tape. I use a sharp blade. Now, if you're not comfortable using a blade, you'll have to spend more time sanding. You see how I can cut off the excess? Right? And it's not the easiest to cut off excess because of the curvature of the tub. But you can see I filled in the cavity, right? Sand the filler almost flush to the tub. So right now I'm just going to sand this smooth. Next step of the process is to smooth out the area. I'm going to use the sander. I start off with 40 to take off the rough edges. Then I use the 120. Then I use this 320 and I sand this by hand. Any areas of the tub like lights and all that or chrome, would make sure you don't touch it with the sander. And you notice I'm sanding in a circular motion and not in the same area. You can see how it's blending in. Last step of the process is doing a fine, smooth sanding finish. And then once that's done, you do a thorough inspection of the work you've done. Okay? If you find any cavities and all that, then you have to repeat the process by adding a little more filler and sanding. And if you feel it, it's nice and smooth. You can't even tell where the filler was.